I really hope this movie is still trending now. I mean, technically this movie is still being shown in theaters, so people still better be talking about this movie because, guys, I am here to tell you that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is one of DreamWorks' best films ever. Okay, well, maybe I'm not the first, but hey, I am also here to talk about this movie, and I don't care if you don't want to listen. Unless you haven't watched this movie, you are trapped here until I finish talking about it. You got that? Now, for those of you who haven't watched this movie, shut up and go watch this movie right now. You are seriously missing out on this masterpiece, this art. So go watch it and come back, yeah? Okay, let's go. Let's dive into my thoughts on Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. We'll break it down to bits just so it doesn't confuse yours or my mind, because, oh man, there is a lot to say.
You know what? I love you guys.
2022 was a really weird time for movies, with Disney pumping out live action after half-hearted empty animated movies, to getting the very weird competition for which company can make the best Pinocchio film. 2022 was starting to exhaust itself. And I was getting pretty exhausted too. The immeasurable disappointment of just seeing Disney flop so hard right in front of my very eyes was tiring. Every single time a movie was announced, Disney or not, the less excited I got. Because after all the mediocre cash grabs as well as lack of creativity in the Hollywood industry, I felt like good media was just gonna be a thing of the past. That was until a Puss in Boots 2 trailer was announced. My reaction to this movie was just the same as any other film was announced before it. Why even bother making a sequel to Puss in Boots 11 years after the first one? I mean, the first film was alright. The animation was nice, the characters were fine, and the story was okay, but it wasn't exactly one of DreamWorks' better movies, you know? And I felt like a sequel was just gonna be another Hotel Transylvania or Secret Life of Pets situation, where companies just give movie sequels that nobody asked for at all. Heck, even DreamWorks is guilty of this. But something changed inside of me when people started talking about Puss in Boots 2, when gawking at the animation, the dialogue, the characters, death. And so I thought, hey, if this movie is actually as good as everybody says it is, then it's definitely worth my time. Let me tell you, yes, it was. This movie made me realize just how beautiful the animation industry can get. And to start off as to why, let's focus on the obvious first.
For a dark forest, this place is pretty colorful.
Who knew Spider-Verse would have such a big impact on animation today? I was so excited the minute I started this Puss in Boots movie because, oh my god, it was so beautiful with its stylistic choice similar to that of Spider-Verse, but different enough where it's fresh and enjoyable. The colors shine bright on the screen and the scratchy hand-drawn bits make for a perfect watercolor storybook feel. Almost like you're in a fairy tale. Well, because you are. The beginning of this movie literally says, this story is a fairy tale, painting a picture of what the story is going to be like and drawing you into this world automatically. The first action sequence with Puss against the sleeping giant was spectacular. The movement of the characters in low frame makes the battle not too chaotic, but not too slow either, allowing for some great gags and a fight choreography to show off firsthand. And it's not too busy for my cluttered mind to comprehend. The camera angles and how this movie was quote-unquote shot was also really well done. I want to particularly commend the scene with Puss's first encounter with death and the fear he starts to feel after death cuts him. Multiple shots on Puss's face, the wound, and the sound design of his heartbeat increasing as the scene goes on is chilly. And this movie keeps itself consistent with the style, whether it's a slow-paced, neutral, or action-packed scene. And it all ties in great with the dialogue, sound effects, and characters. Whoever worked on this movie needs like a 40-hour-long nap because my god, they really wanted this movie to do well. You can clearly see the amount of effort they put into the breathtaking visuals of this movie. It's just so colorful, so edible, I want to eat these colors. This movie already sets the bar pretty high for having such distinct animation like this, but guess what? It gets even higher.
Trust you? Like I did in Santa Coloma?
Really? Santa Coloma?
Si, Santa Coloma!
First of all, props to all the voice actors in this movie. They all nailed their roles so well. The dialogue is fun and witty, the delivery isn't clunky and feels more natural than my organic deodorant, and
you're supposed to be dead.
I got better?
The voices were just so fitting to the characters. And speaking of, the characters are well written with their own individual stories. You would think that having this many characters like Goldilocks and the Bears, Jack Horner and Kitty Softpaws, Death and Perrito would be too much for this movie. But no, for some reason this movie doesn't feel like that at all. Like, I don't even know how it was done. It was so cool. Not to mention, I found myself not hating a single character in this movie, which is pretty rare for other media for me. Everyone was just so entertaining to watch. I never got frustrated when the focus shifted from from one character to the next because they were all interesting enough to be worth my time. First off, you got your classic Puss in Boots, your favorite orange tabby kitty. Unless you own a tabby cat, in which case he's probably better than Puss by your standards. I just loved seeing Puss's action and joyous nature of being a legend, as well as his self-centered nature getting the better of him, which we'll talk about later. He has some of the best lines in this movie, and of course, with the film being a sequel, it kept its character and personality accurate to the original, which is always appreciated when it comes to sequels. I'm also glad that Kitty Softpaws came back in this movie. I really liked her in the first one, and she rocked in this one too. Her storyline of trying to find someone she trusts was very sad when you consider that the last time she trusted someone, she got rejected. But the story of her reconciling with Puss and making amends was honestly really sweet. And I liked how their love story wasn't too blatant or subtle, nor was it cheesy or dramatic like other movie romances. It was honest and made me smile. These are the kind of romances I like to see more of in the media. It doesn't need a weird scene or the very on-the-nose, I love you line. Sometimes it's just honest, developed communication. And the romance is not something that detracts from the story or the character growth, and if anything, it amplifies it, telling a sincere story about trust and acceptance without being too in your face. It's so cute. Now, I was worried I wasn't going to like Perrito, to be honest. I'll admit, at the beginning of the movie, he was a bit annoying, but then I realized that the reason why I thought that was because Perrito was a glass-half-full dog among other glass-half-empty people. Perrito was a tiny, simple dog who just wanted to smell the roses and appreciate life no matter how bad it got. I started to like his character more after learning of his abusive past, especially because it taught me that I should still stay hopeful and grateful regardless of what happens to me. And I'm a pretty pessimistic person, so seeing this tiny, stupid dog teach me something that I should be doing was refreshing, to say the least. I also love the part of Perrito wanting to be a therapy dog. It fits so well with his character, that is, to help others, and came into aid later on when helping Puss in the panic attack scene, which was portrayed really well in my opinion. I feel like it's hard to do a panic attack scene right in a way that shows how it could feel, and while I have seen some good examples of panic attacks in other animated media which were done wonderfully in their respective contexts, this one just felt more natural and comforting in an odd way. It realistically shows how therapy pets, specifically dogs, treat patients who may have these attacks by laying their heads on their chest or lap as a way to calm the patient down. It works for Puss, and the fact that he was able to open up to Perrito afterward just makes it more honest. Can you tell how much I love this scene? Like, it's so good. Goldilocks and the Three Bears was a very neat touch. The dynamics between Goldie and the bears was hilarious, especially her relationship with Mama and Baby Bear. Like, this is how you actually write siblings in media, okay? It actually goes like this.
She's not my sister. She's a fugitive orphan. Ow!
She is your sister. Do as she says.
Fine.
And the character design is very distinctive for each of them. The found family thing these bears have going on was such a nice theme. I don't know, I'm a weak and simple woman, okay? Like, this scene had me tearing up. God. I love how this movie takes a creative turn with fairy tale characters and rewrites them to be more wholesome. Or not so wholesome. Jack Horner was another one of the characters I thought I would hate, but he ended up being so funny. Every single line that comes out of this guy's mouth is quotable.
You know I'm dead inside.
I hate talking fairy tale animals!
I'm your conscience.
I really did overpack.
You're not gonna shoot a puppy, are you, Jack?
Yeah, in the face. Why?
I never knew the fairy tale, nursery rhyme, or whatever he came from, but he was a nice addition to the story. His character of being a villain for villain's sake was spectacular. It just goes to show that sometimes a villain can just be bad with no traumatic backstory or anything. Sometimes a villain is just a villain because they're just a jerk. And I think this was done really well with Jack's character. And of course, I have to talk about Death, right? Everybody on the internet is saying he's one of DreamWorks' best villains, and I couldn't agree more. It's a very different take on the main villain character because Death represents, well, death. And even though he's an antagonist because Puss goes against him, he's not wrong in his motives and what he does. Death is a natural thing. Everyone will die someday. So we find ourselves not necessarily hating this character at all because he's right in his pursuit of Puss. It almost feels wrong to call him the villain in that regard because he is stating facts. And I think that's a great spin on an antagonist, one that I never thought of before. Also, the character design and the voice acting is just mwah! It's so chilly and fitting.
I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way.
There's not even sound effects to portray how scary this guy is. His voice just sounds so smooth yet scary, which settles for an unsettling aura. But at the same time, you want to hear everything this guy has to say. It's just perfect casting. But we really can't discuss more about this guy without the theme he carries, can we? The message of this movie is very bold for a kid's film, but it tells it in a way that's not too mature or childish. Among the wacky art style and great characters, the theme of mortality also excels in this movie. Puss was a character that quote-unquote laughed in the face of death. Because of his 9 lives and him wanting to be a popular, well-loved legend, he was careless in actually cherishing his precious life, wasting it on his desires and lust, going wherever he wanted even if it was dangerous. And even though he was constantly dying, he didn't care because he thought he was immortal. Puss needs to realize that death comes to everyone and you can never run away from it. It will come to you and snatch you up one day whether you expect it to or not. But Puss doesn't want that. He wants to keep up his desires. He wants to keep up this good life he has for himself. So he keeps on running away from death, afraid that one day it'll take him. But as Puss goes along on his journey for more lives, he starts to realize that life isn't about merely fulfilling one's desire, but it's by cherishing it, doing good, and helping others. And once Puss realizes that, by the end of the story, he's not afraid of death anymore, because he accepts it's going to happen to him one day, yet he knows that this life he's fighting for is being used for good. And he emphasizes this with one line in the final battle against death.
Lives flashing before your eyes?
No, just one.
I think this is a wonderful lesson we all need to learn, or at least remind ourselves of constantly. It's important to understand that life is very precious and fleeting. Throwing it away on worthless, wasteful garbage is just a shame and very sad. Sometimes that wake-up call of, hey, you are going to die one day, can help us improve ourselves and become better, kinder people with the limited time we have, and have us not regret later of the time we were given. For a talking cat movie, this message was conveyed beautifully, and I think it was a great bookend to 2022, not just for our bad streak of movies, but also for a more introspective and hopefully better start to 2023. And yes, I know it's like February, but shut up, it's still the start of 2023, okay? So, in conclusion, this is one of DreamWorks' best films ever made, and it needs to do well because DreamWorks really seems like they are soaring with their movies. And I don't know about you, but I'm kinda sorta losing hope in Disney. Better step up your game, Mickey Mouse, because DreamWorks might pass you up in the future.
Bears, we have to find them before they find the star.
Oh, we are so close.